And I think that's the beauty of why people like us are sharing our stories, and like why you all are doing this podcast, and like stepping into this leadership role, is because it's more empathetic, earth-based people are going to be stepping more into leadership roles, and disconnecting from the greed and disconnection. I mean, there's going to be both always, but I feel like the empathetic, earth-based leader is the new goal, and
Yeah.
and is rising. It is. It's
We got to
happening.
have these conversations to get that ball rolling.
Right, to get from, because we're creating a new story, to get from where we are to where we want to be. Yeah, that takes creating a new story of, or maybe not checking out completely, because there's probably some good things from where we are right now that we want to carry forward. I don't believe it's all awful. You know, how technology and herbalism can go hand in hand, and also probably with farming and things like that. Like just these technologies like the tractor and all that stuff are very important. I can speak for myself as having too much unbalance in my life. I'm definitely feeling that stress, overwork, push capitalism thing. So it would be really nice if it can be shifted. And I also think there's like this, also the idea of like my coworkers in the past and people I've worked with have expressed that there's this idea of you aren't up to like working at this capacity, that you're just, there's something wrong with you, or you're like a wimp, you know, like if I never call out, I'm doing good, right? Like never take a sick day. Well, take a sick day, man.
Not even a sick day, but like a mental health day, or just like
Right.
self-care day. Like you shouldn't have to be sick to take a day off.
We need to tell ourselves that, hey, that's fine. You know, you're a person. You can take a day
Or a week.
or a week. Yes, I would. I mean, for a month, whatever. But going back to something that you said, Deanna, about leadership, us stepping into a leadership role, for me, that's definitely like a new thing, because I was never in a leadership role before. I've never been in one. Unfortunately, in my friends group, and I mean, I don't know if high school is a good example, because I know a lot of people have terrible high school experiences, but like I was always like the one who everyone did not listen to. They did not, like, my thoughts were, I felt never valued. And of course, eventually I just sort of was like, I'm going to be by myself. Bye. You guys are not actually friends. It's been not my experience to, when I talk, people are like, oh yeah, that's cool. I'm interested in that, or I hear what you're saying. And so the story of this podcast has been me really sort of stepping out of that. You know, I have ADD. I have sometimes hard time expressing. That's been challenging, but we have editing, so that's good.
Technology.
Woohoo! Technology feels good to be able to do something that is in a leadership capacity. And I really do feel like we are doing something on this podcast, that we are contributing to a possible better future. And I think that's really cool. We're gonna ask the next question. So Deanna, do you have a personal herb story, or that you would be able to share with us today?
Yeah, I would like to share. I have two I would like to share. They're so one time I was like working in the garden, and I was like just like digging or weeding or something, and all of a sudden I was barefoot, and the spider bit my ankle.
Oh.
And it ran. I was like chasing it, trying to see what kind of spider it was. I was like, it was like just this sharp, like, boom. And I saw it, and I started chasing it, and I and it just went so fast that I couldn't figure out, because I was like, I need to know what type of spider that was. Um, and so then then it started swelling, and um, so I went down the road to this urgent care, um, like doctor's office that's like urgent care, and you can just walk in. And so I got into the office. I had to wait for a long time, and then once the doctor came in, they were like, "Oh, it looks just like a sweat bee sting. You don't. It wasn't a spider." And I was like, I saw it happen, and it's definitely way more swollen than a sweat bee sting would be on me. And they were just like, "No, it's not a big deal. Just take some Benadryl."
Mm-hmm.
And so I was kind of angry. So I was just like, all right, so I'm going to have to figure this out myself. Cause it was like new on like the first, maybe like, it was like the third year I was studying herbalism. So I was like, all right, so, they just want me to take Benadryl and not put anything on the spider bite. And it's starting to swell, and I'm having a hard time walking. Um,
Wow.
it was starting to swell so much I couldn't walk. So I went to the garden, and so I pulled out a culpepper book. Um, and the great thing about culpepper is they use a lot. I believe it was culpepper. It's been like 13 years since this story has happened, but it's one of um, the most resonant stories I still have for just like always like coming back to yourself and continuing to do research. So I looked up what was good for spider bites in that book, and it said basil, just like regular culinary basil. Because we normally try plantain, and I was using it, and it wasn't quite working for this specific situation. So I chewed up just regular green culinary basic basil, and I had never heard of it being used medicinally before. So I chewed it up, and I kept putting the poultice of the basil on my spider bite. And then within like 20 minutes of having, or maybe a little bit longer, maybe 30 minutes of having it on directly on the spider bite, all this like black goo started coming out. All the venom and stuff just
Oh,
started coming out.
wow.
And then by the next day, my foot was not swollen anymore, and it was fine. So, like I just, all this guck came out. And so, yeah, it just showed me the power of just even like basic culinary herbs are not basic at all. They're like thyme, how I was mentioning before. Like
Mhm.
the reason why they're actually so prevalent in our kitchens is because they are so medicinally powerful as well. And so, but yeah, just yeah. So that's when I kind of just like my mind was blown about basil, and so that's when I started researching about thyme and basic different spices, and how um, they are just as powerful as the herbs we choose for our teas or tinctures or salves. And
So they're not actually just common kitchen herbs. That's like a term that needs to be sort of changed